Let me ask you a question. How much time do you think by the end of your life you will have spent cumulatively on social media? So if you put it all together, how much time? Well, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics says it will be about 6 years and 8 months of your life that you will have spent on social media. That's a lot of time. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about social media, tech, and boundaries. And listen, that's not all bad. I'm not anti-social media, but you really have to think about the time that you're spending and how it might be negatively impacting your mental health. So, if you don't know me, I'm Terri Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I'm the author of Boundary Boss, the essential guide to talk true, be seen, and finally live free, available everywhere that fine books are sold. So I want to say thank you for being here, for hanging out. I love all of your comments. I am responding to all of them, but I really do appreciate this group because you are committed to and interested in your own mental health and growth, which is why you are my people. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Before we get started, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so that you don't miss a thing. Whenever I do something new, you will get a notification that says I did something new. You don't want to miss it now, do you? All right, so let's talk about it. Things have changed a little bit when it comes to social media and tech because we have survived a global pandemic, right? Still happening, but in the last year, almost year and a half, we were all in close quarters and sort of locked down in a different way. And for a lot of people, social media became this invaluable tool, right? For keeping in touch with friends, with loved ones, and knowing what was going on in the rest of the world. This is what I care about, though, is I want you to be mindful of the way it makes you feel after spending time on social media or after spending time, in a Netflix hole, right? Technology in general. And are you doing these things while you're in the rest of your life? Meaning, are you on social media while you're with people? Let's say you could spend time in person with people in your pod. Are you on your phone? Because we really need to be mindful. And this is an internal boundary that I'm going to be talking about, is how we can put appropriate limits on what we're doing when it comes to being online. We're social creatures. I mean, this is the reality of human beings. We need to be social. We need companionship to thrive. This is a part of what makes us human. And being socially disconnected can be super isolating, is super isolating, can create stress, anxiety, depression. The thing with being on social media is that really can assuage those feelings. And we saw this during the pandemic, but even before that, right? It can provide comfort, connection, joy, being seen. But you have to be discerning about where you're spending your time, not just where you're getting your news, obviously. There's been so many issues online with that, but where you're spending your time, right? What circles are you spending time in online? Is it a trusted place? Are you learning something? Are you being seen? Or is it a place that is more hostile? A lot of us rely on Facebook, Twitter, all of the places that we go, Instagram, to get our connection. And many of us are online entrepreneurs. And this is also a business thing. But you also have to know that our bodies respond. We are releasing, feel-good hormones when we make the connection, and feel-good hormones when people like what we're posting, people are leaving comments for us. This is all the same part of our brains that are impacted when we're addicted to something. Like when a gambler, wins and, gets a hit of dopamine. When someone who is addicted to a drug or drink has that thing, that same exact part of the brain is impacted. So it is a real thing. Like what can happen, and the time that you spend actually matters. And what I've seen in my psychotherapy practice over the years, way before the pandemic, is that as social media and as phones became smartphones became readily available, and as social media, really around 2008-9, became a real thing, that people who were avoidant in their relationships a lot of times used social media as a way to avoid feeling the way they didn't want to feel. So listen, social media and technology, of course, it can be used for good, and it can bolster our self-esteem and help make us feel better. But it can also be a tool that is used in an unhealthy way. So, what are the positive aspects of social media itself? Well, we stay connected to the people we care about. You can also find communities of people who are similar to you, have similar interests to you. You can raise money for worthwhile causes. Again, be with people who are interested in the things that you're interested in. You can offer support to others who are going through, a rough time. This social connection can be vital, especially if you live in a remote area, even before we were all so isolated through the lockdown of the pandemic. For a lot of folks who live in places that are way not connected, and even where I live, I live on 3 acres in the middle of the woods. So it isn't like, unless I leave my house and get in my car, besides the UPS driver or the FedEx guy, it's unlikely, because our mail doesn't even get delivered here because we live so far away from things. It would be unlikely that Vic and I would see other people unless we get in our car and drive somewhere to see other people. I also think that, social media, when you think about creative types, it is a place for creative expression, because there's all kinds of groups of artists and people who can appreciate the things that you appreciate, or maybe an author that you love or whatever. So again, information too. When my mother was diagnosed with anal cancer during the pandemic, one of the most important sources of information that I got, and actually Chris Carr, I don't know if you guys know Chris, but she's amazing. She is a friend of many decades. And I said, I need the information that the doctors aren't telling me. I want to know what the people have experienced who've been through this. What are the information that they know that the doctors aren't telling us? And she said, join Facebook groups for this. And the most valuable information that helped my sisters and myself, helped my mother the most throughout this experience, I swear, we got in a Facebook group for folks going through the process of anal cancer and the chemo and the radiation and all of the tips. And then you get to see people on the other side, all of the people who survived and are, cheering you on, sort of. I didn't have my mother go on it because I was worried that if she would read something bad that she'd be scared, but I just figured I would just do it and make it easier. She was too sick to go on anyway, but she's well now, thank God. So anyway, that was a godsend for us. And that was something that I found on Facebook, where I really don't spend all that much time. But what are the negative aspects of this? And we all know this. What about compare and despair, right? Where we feel that our lives are somehow less than other people's. And especially if you're an online entrepreneur and you're looking at someone else's, their feed looks like they just got it all figured out. And you're like, but I don't have it all figured out. So it can really create a sense of inferiority or inadequacy, especially if we are comparing ourselves to others in our social media experience. And what about, this whole, people talk about FOMO. Remember when people used to say that? But like this fear of missing out, that if I'm not on there, will I miss out on something? Is something happening? Am I missing something important? Would I be having more fun if I were on there? And that's a real thing. Actually, from a psychological point of view, honestly, fear of missing out really creates anxiety and is a real thing. So this happens in online world as well, and it exacerbates anxiety, which we don't want. There's actually studies that have been done. The University of Pennsylvania did a study that says that high usages of Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, that can increase rather than decrease your sense of loneliness. So that's also sort of interesting. And then conversely, there was a study that found that reducing social media usage can actually make you feel less lonely and isolated and improve your overall well-being. And listen, there's tons of studies that would tell us either way, right? It depends on what the originators are focusing on. But there is something real about, it's almost like being in a relationship where you don't feel seen, like an actual relationship in real life, and how that can be more isolating than being single. So I feel like I liken it to that. I feel like it's similar. Listen, we need face-to-face contact. And obviously for many of us during the lockdown, literally we couldn't do it. We didn't have it. But for our mental health, we really do need it. And nothing helps us get into a state of connection or boost your endorphins faster than, eye-to-eye contact with someone who cares about you, right? Being in actual relationship in real life with folks. And I'm not talking about romantic relationships only. I'm talking about siblings, friendships. I mean, we're seeing now a lot of people have had a chance now to reconnect with the people that they love in their life in real life. But it was painful. I mean, one of my kids had a baby, right? They live in Chicago. I have not seen the baby yet. The baby's 4 months old. It's so depressing. And we're going actually soon, which is amazing. But that would never happen, obviously. If it was safe to go visit them, I would have gone the second the baby was born. So it's sad, but we need to do it. So there's two things going on, right? Like how we would normally respond in situations. Then what we had to figure out during a global pandemic of how we were going to do this. And now that things are starting to normalize some, if you can and it's safe, listen, in-person stuff is the way to go. Other things that are bad about social media is that there's cyberbullying, there's trolls, there's getting into arguments with people you don't even know, like why, just please stop. We saw this at the height during the presidential, everything leading up to the president of the United States, of us voting for that. That was just a whole year of just horrible stuff online and just so much, oh my God, just so much hatred that was going back and forth for so many reasons, which is very depressing. And we're absorbing all of that when you're spending a lot of time on that. Also, keep in mind, if your whole life is about people looking at you, if you are, posting selfies every 3 hours about yourself, there is this level of self-absorption that didn't used to exist because it was so hard. Like it was all laborious to take pictures. You needed film. You had to go bring it somewhere. You had to get them developed. You didn't even know if they were good. Like everything is so instant now with technology that we see ourselves a lot more now than you ever did 20 years ago. I can tell you that much. But there also is a level of self-absorption when everything you think about is like, ooh, I should put this on Insta, or I should do this. Like, are we in our real lives or are we not? And I think you also have to look at for yourself, what drives your own social media use. That's very personal to you, right? Everyone does it differently. You might be looking to go there because you're feeling lonely and depressed, or you're feeling bored. Again, we don't want to feel bored. But if you use social media too often for these things, because again, these are things that we need something else. We need real life. And now we know that there is a real psychological aspect to the dopamine hit that happens when we are on social media. So I have a couple of questions for you just to see about your use of technology. Are you ever without your phone? Think about it. Do you have any rules or boundaries or regulations around your phone use for yourself? How about within your relationship? Is it okay for either person to just whip out their phone while the other one is talking? Within your family? Do you have teenagers? Is there any rules around that? Do you have your phone in your bedroom with you? Do you have your phone out when you're out to dinner with anyone? And listen, we make exceptions. If you have a babysitter at home, obviously having your phone there, so if they need you, or if you have kids at home, different phases of your life will make different things appropriate. But generally speaking, if there's not any reason to have your phone out at dinner and you do, that is telling you how normalized being half present is in your life, because that really is what we're talking about. There is no way you're having the same experience if you're talking to someone and they're telling you something important and you're scrolling Instagram. There's no way. You guys know I've talked about this before. I can't with people being on their phone. So I don't. If I'm talking to you and if you look down on your phone, and I'm not just doing it to like control you or be rude. What I have to say matters. And maybe what you're doing matters. So maybe it can't wait and I can. And I will say, I can wait. And if the person says, no, I'm listening, I'm like, no, you're not actually. And I need you to listen with your eyes and your ears. And hey, maybe I'm high maintenance. You know what? I don't give a shit. That's the truth for me. Those are the people who are in my life. But it is not normal for me to be with people who are on their phone all the time. And I find it so disheartening because I'm such an empath that it makes me feel so disconnected if I'm with people who are on their phone or who are Google searching something the whole time we're supposed to be having dinner. You're like, what is going on there? Another question is, has it become socially acceptable to be completely absent from a conversation in your own life? Is that fine? To be like, playing Candy Crush on these things, while or whatever. Do people even play that game anymore? I don't even know. You guys, I'm so out of it when it comes to those things, but you get what I'm saying. It's not necessary. And intimacy is hard enough. And when you are on your phone all the time or doing something else or multitasking or thinking that you're multitasking, trust me, wasn't there like a Harvard study, I think there was, or a Yale study that basically measured the productivity of students who said they were successfully multitasking, and it proved that they just did everything 30% worse. So really, multitasking is a bit of a myth, I think, the ability to do so. So what happens psychologically when we turn to our phones and our devices? Well, a lot of times we use this, as I was saying before, to not feel the way we don't want to feel. So we use it as a way of avoiding feelings. Listen, it doesn't put us in a good problem-solving space, but it also is very isolating. So those are the good and the bad, and I really want to know what you think about this. Where are you at in your life? Do you have conflicts? Because many of you have written into me saying that you have conflicts in your relationship because the person that you're with is plugged in all the time, comes home from work, when they were actually going out to work, and gets right on the computer and is doing this or is playing Warcraft or whatever they're doing. They say they're doing it to relax, but a lot of times it's getting us out of our actual real life, which is important, because whether we're going to spend 6 years and 8 months of our life on social media, and maybe we are, and hopefully a lot of that is going to be in positive interactions, you have choices about what you're going to do and the internal boundaries that you need. And I made a guide for you, so don't worry. In the guide, I have a bunch of ideas of what you can do to really check what's happening with your own relationship to technology and social media, because there is nothing more important than you being present in your real, actual life, like the one that's actually happening now in your life. So you can download the guide. I also wanted to tell you about something that I'm doing, because I've been getting all of these questions from people in this age group. The 18 to early 30s age group is really struggling with a whole bunch of boundary issues. And so I've created Boundary Boss Next Gen, which is a course for folks who are in this phase of development of life, because it is a phase with so many complicated things happening at the same time, which is relationships, right? Your friendships, online dating, breaking away from your family of origin, dealing with your relationship to drugs and alcohol, friendships, actually your friends. So many problematic friendships during this age, especially if some people are getting married, some people are not getting married, some people are having kids, some people are not having kids. So as much as I just wrote a book and I have a course for, Boundary Boot Camp that goes along with the Boundary Boss book, this is particular to this age group because I feel like what you are going through, if you are in this age group, is specific and particular. So when you download your the downloadable cheat sheet for this episode, it's just going to be at terricole.com/tech is what we're calling it. You will also, I'll give you all the information for Boundary Boss Next Gen, because wouldn't it be amazing if this would be the last generation who struggled with being boundary disasters? And I really do believe that the boundary revolution has begun, and you can all be a part of making sure that this ends with this gen. This ends. This boundary disaster life, this making yourself small, this saying yes when you want to say no, it ends with this generation, because we need leaders who are boundary bosses. We need all of you as healthy as possible. So anyway, thank you so much for spending time with me today. Make sure that you download your downloadable guide, terricole.com/tech, and to be continued, as always, take care of you.